Hey everyone, welcome to the Neurology Nursing Podcast. I'm Heather Murphy, and today we're going to take a little tour inside the nervous system. Now, I know neuroanatomy can sound intimidating, but I promise we'll keep it practical and, well, as painless as possible. So let's start with the basics. The nervous system is this super specialized network that basically runs the show in our bodies. It's split into two main parts, the central nervous system, or CNS, and the peripheral nervous system, or PNS. The CNS is your brain and spinal cord. Think of it as the command center. The PNS is everything else, all those cranial and spinal nerves, plus the autonomic nervous system, which handles stuff you don't even think about, like your heart rate or digestion. Now, the real stars of the nervous system are the cells. We've got neurons and neuroglia. Neurons are the ones that actually generate and transmit impulses. They're like the messengers, zipping signals all over the place. They're excitable, which means they can generate a nerve impulse, and they're conductive, so they can pass that impulse along. And then there's neuroglia, sometimes called glial cells. These guys are the support crew. They don't send signals themselves, but they nourish, protect, and generally keep the neurons happy and healthy. So how do the CNS and PNS work together? Well, the CNS is making the big decisions, and the PNS is carrying out the orders and bringing back information. It's like the CNS is the CEO, and the PNS is the team out in the field. They're constantly communicating to keep everything running smoothly, regulating movement, sensation, even your mood. I mean, it's a lot more complicated than that, but you get the idea. All right, so let's talk about how all these signals actually travel. When a neuron gets excited, it creates what's called an action potential. That's just a fancy way of saying an electrical impulse shoots down the axon. When it gets to the end, it can't just jump to the next neuron. There's a little gap called a synapse. Here's where neurotransmitters come in. They're chemical messengers that cross the synapse and trigger the next neuron to fire. It's like a relay race, but with electricity and chemicals instead of batons. Now, let's zoom in on some of the big structures. The spinal cord is basically the main highway, carrying messages up to the brain and back down to the body. It's got these ascending tracks for sensory info and descending tracks for motor commands. Then there's the brain itself, which is divided into the cerebral hemispheres, cerebellum, and brainstem. Each part has its own job. The cerebrum is split into lobes. The frontal lobe handles things like memory and voluntary movement. The temporal lobe is big for speech and integrating sensory data. Parietal lobe deals with spatial info, and the occipital lobe is all about vision. The brainstem, which includes the midbrain, pons, and medulla, is where you find the vital centers for breathing and heart function. And then there's the cerebellum. Oh, I have to share this. I remember once I was precepting a new nurse, and we had a patient who kept losing their balance. And the nurse was convinced it was a muscle issue, but I explained, no, it's the cerebellum's job to coordinate movement and keep you steady. And I think I said something like, if your cerebellum's off, you're going to look like you just spun around in a chair too many times. Not the most scientific explanation, but it stuck with her. So, the cerebellum is your balance and coordination center. And don't forget about the cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF. It cushions the brain and spinal cord, helps with nutrient transport, and allows for fluid shifts. It's like the shock absorber and delivery service all in one. Now, with all this delicate tissue, protection is key. The nervous system has several layers of defense. First, there's the blood-brain barrier, which is a special filter that keeps out harmful substances from the blood. Then you've got the meninges, 3 layers of membranes that wrap around the brain and spinal cord. And, of course, the bony skull and vertebral column, which are like the armor for your brain and spinal cord. But as we age, things change. There's a natural loss of neurons in areas like the brainstem, cerebellum, and cortex. That can lead to changes in memory, muscle strength, reaction time, and even senses like vision and hearing. I remember a case from a few years back. An older patient who'd always been sharp and independent started having trouble with balance and memory. We did a full neuro assessment and found that, aging had really affected their nervous system. It put them at higher risk for falls and other complications. It's a reminder that as nurses, we have to be extra vigilant with our older adults, watching for subtle changes that might signal a bigger problem. So that's our whirlwind tour of the nervous system, how it's built, how it communicates, how it protects itself, and what happens as we age. There's a lot more to cover, especially when we get into increased intracranial pressure and how all these pieces fit together in real life scenarios. But we'll save that for next time. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.